All right. Hey, y'all. How y'all doing? Okay, so I'm back with another rabbit hole. RHT. I think I'm just going to shorten it to RHT. I really think it has a great ring to it. RHT. So, welcome. Now, with this rabbit hole time, well, most of my rabbit, probably all, they're going to dip and dab into the conspiracy. And yes, I'm putting my fingers up. Conspiracy category here. Yeah, I would say it's kind of like a spirit because it's different ideas you can bounce, off the walls. You can bounce around in your head, rather I should say. Does that sound better? Bounce whatever. It doesn't matter. You get what I'm saying. Um, Sometimes I just be thinking too hard. But anywho, so are you ready to go down this rabbit hole? And this is for entertaining purposes. It's for entertainment purposes. Um, because I have my opinion or my guess, of course, when it comes down to a lot of these movies, a lot of movies like these. And so yes, today I'm doing Avatar. Because I mentioned it last time, so yeah, I felt like I should go ahead and just do that next, just like I did with the other. Yeah. So if you haven't tuned into any other Rabbit Hole time, go ahead and check those out. Okay, so Avatar. First of all, I love this movie, and before, like when I first seen it, when it first came out, I wasn't so in tune, I guess you would say. For me, it still felt like I felt some type of way when I watched it. I still felt like a connection to the movie, and I didn't understand why. And I understand of course, way more now because that was a long time ago. I haven't seen the second one yet. Not too sure what I'm gonna do episode on that one because I'm pretty sure it's like similar to the first one as far as like the gist of the situation. But I don't know. I have to see it first, of course. A lot of people have been saying like it tells like a lot of truth or it's like hitting value in the movie. So I'm gonna have to check that out. As long as I waited on it, you would think that I would have jumped on it as soon as it dropped, but I guess I waited on it so long. I'm like, what's a few more, whatever. Because I haven't really been watching like movies and stuff, guys. I guess that's why a lot of my stuff is kind of like old material for the most part. Um, but it's just a lot of movies that are interesting me, like Maturity Candidate. And I'm always bringing up another movie, and it ends up just being the next episode. So I might do Maturity Candidate next. I don't know. It depends. It depends though. Yeah, cause that's another oldie but goodie. I don't know. We'll see. That's not a guarantee though. The other ones that was different, and I knew I probably was gonna do episode on that, but I don't know about the Maturity Candidate. That might be a little. Well, I don't want to say it's a little too much. It might not be too much for some people to hear my opinions on that one. And remember, anytime you're here, this is a safe place. Like, don't let any of this information spook you. Because I know, like, when I first started to, what I would consider myself waking up, when I first started to be more aware of certain things, depending on what rabbit hole you go down. Like, some rabbit holes you're not ready for. And you keep digging. Find stuff like, it one moment is shocking, then it could be relieving, then it can be like this big wow factor. And then it could be, depending on the case, it could be kind of like fearful. But I don't want you to ever have any fear, period, regardless. Even if you go down the, to me, technically, there's no, wrong rabbit hole. Or, if you're researching, if you're digging for truth, I feel like that whole entire experience, eventually you should feel good about it. Now, but you know better than anybody. You should know like what you're ready for, what you're not ready for. So if you do start seeing certain things and you're like, ooh, this is kind of creeping me out, either don't watch it at night, because I had to kind of like tell myself like I do want to know the truth about this particular subject I'm looking into, but maybe when there's maybe when it's nighttime, maybe that's not the best time. So I started doing certain research during the day. But anywho, so going back to the subject at hand here. So we have RHT, subject matter, Avatar. So with Avatar, I mean, just watching it alone, it upset me. Like whether you're digging or looking deeper into it or not. It's just the whole narrative. It's like these people, these natives on this planet, minding their business, and here come these greedy people want to suck up all their resources for money. Okay, sorry, but that's pretty much what the movie's about. But going a little deeper here and a little bit more into the actual movie itself. Hold on one second. Let me take a little. The throat's a little. Sorry about that. Appreciate you waiting patiently. So yeah, ooh, that's bad. So we have our main character, who is Jake. Now, I already seen a red flag at how this kind of was going to, like, what road this was going to lead to or lead down. Because they come in hot. To me, they come in hot. And it's okay. So you have Jake, right? And Jake is a person who was in the military. He mentions that he was a Marine. Now, when Jake was in the Marines, I don't remember him saying what happened to him. I just know that he got hurt and he ended up being disabled and he couldn't walk, right? And so he was in a wheelchair. And he mentioned that, they had the surgery, like they had the process and everything like that, where you could, get your legs back or get the ability to use your legs again. Like, in his situation, he was saying the only thing was he didn't have the money for it. He's like, as long as you have enough money for it, you can get the surgery to fix it, and you don't have to worry about being disabled, or whatever the case may be. And I was just like, that is so, like, what? Like, because just imagine you have people who are disabled, any disability that you have, and they can fix it, but they want you have to have all this money, you have to have big money to, get treatment or to fix this issue or have surgery. And I just think that's completely unfair. Now, mind you, sorry, I forgot to put my phone on silent again. So, mind you, that this is really based off of, like, being in the future, right? And it's very futuristic, and they clearly show you signs of that, like, in the movie. You can see that people are walking around. It's different. Like, they had a subway train at one point, like, in the background, and it was very futuristic. Like, this is based off being in the future. So to me, it's already painting a picture that we have it. Like, we have the technology, right? And anything's possible as long as you can pay for it. And I just feel like that's so super unfair. And he was saying, and he also stated that he was on disability, and he was like, he could barely. He was like, pretty much, because he had a line where he said that, yeah, if you like, you're good if you want a cup of coffee, which pretty much saying that his disability checks were little to nothing, right? And it kind of reminds you of today and how they treat our veterans and our military people. And I really feel like you asked for a lot, so when someone comes home, they should get a lot. Like, that's not cool to me. And I don't feel like it's far-fetched, even though they place it, like, in the future and they're traveling to, like, different planets. Not much has changed, though. But, like, technology, and it's like, technology changed, the quality of life changed, but you had to afford it? Like, what? So, when we upgrade, because that brings it back to reality. When we upgrade and we have these discoveries and we create all these fantastic things, and people sit and have conversations about this, like, I can't wait for the day where we'll be able to do this. The thing is, yeah, you can't wait for that day, but are they gonna make it to the point where you can't afford it? So what's the point? What's the point? What's the point of building a better world and then putting a price tag on it? An extremely high price tag at that. Like, are you serious? So, for example, since we're on that, before I move to the next, like, description of the movie, the next part of the movie. So, let's say he's no longer disabled, and he somehow, someway gets the money, and he gets the functions of his legs back, right? But then he got to go out and try to figure out, while still being on disability, he would have to figure out how to pay for it. And it's like, how does that, like, how does that work? Like he's giving up one thing for another. Like it's still stressful. It's still stressful, and I'm pretty sure that he would give up. Well, he ended up joining this program that he knew nothing about. So clearly, But well, no, I can't say that because he didn't like him getting the function of his legs. Like, I don't know if that. I don't know if that was what drove him. Because honestly, it seemed like he just had given up to a certain point. He was just existing. So I think he would have just jumped on almost anything, to be honest. So I don't know. But moving forward, so he's at this bar, right? And he was still like giving a description of like how the world was, and he was like, it's the big guy picking on the little guy, kind of sort of to the point like the rich are rich, and the poor are the poor, and pretty much like the world had, like I said, had upgraded, but the actions of people really didn't change much. It's people still getting bullied, people still being taken advantage of, and things like that. So he's at the bar, and mind you, he's in a wheelchair, and he sees some guy getting like bullied, I guess you might as well say, by two other bigger guys or whatever, and he jumps into the situation, and he ends up getting kicked out of the bar. Mind you, they throw this man out and throw his wheelchair at him, and I thought I'm like, that's not cute. Come on now. I didn't appreciate it. Like, so it's like no one cared. Mind you, throughout the movie, no one cared at all that he had a disability. No one cared. Like, no one. It didn't. They made it like they were aware, and I want to say they treated him worse for it, to be honest. But anyway, moving forward. So he's in the alley. He's in like a puddle of water, which makes my skin itch. He was in like this dirty water, street water. So he was in a puddle of water, like in the alley where they kicked him out of the bar. And these two guys, like the man in black or something, these two guys, with suits on or whatever, they were like, I don't know, they were part of like the operation, whatever. They looked like they were recruiters or collectors, whatever you want to call them. So they appear, and they're like, hey, uh, we have some news for you. Your brother passed away. And he was like, oh no, like what? And so he's like doing like a voiceover or whatever. And he's like narrating for the most part. And then they take him to view his brother's body. And when they take him in the place or whatever, and everything's pretty futuristic, y'all. So this place is like people walk around, they look like they get on like scientist coats or lab coats or whatever you call it, and they're like moving and whatever. They made it obvious that it was in the future. So they take him into the room, into this big huge room, where they had like they had people in like these cardboard boxes, and they let him identify the body, and that's where we are shown that it's his identical brother, his identical twin brother. And so I want to say, because he died, I think he said when he was doing like the narration that his brother was killed in like a robbery, like the guy stabbed him during the robbery. I think he just wanted his wallet or something like that. I want to say that's what he said. I did look at it now, you guys. I looked at it earlier just to like freshen my mind to make sure that the information I gave you guys was a little bit more on point than other two, because I didn't want to go just based off of memory. And the movie is long, so I did want to like refresh myself, and I did rewatch it. But not the entire thing. I skipped through a few parts. But I did like freshen my mind about it. So I want to say that's what he said though, that he was killed doing like someone robbing him. So his brother gets killed, and this is where the two guys say, well, listen, your brother had a project he was working on, and they made it very clear. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of liked it. They didn't sugarcoat, they didn't lie to him. They told him straight up, look, your brother was part of this project we was working on, or that he was working on, and it was expensive. And like pretty much his DNA was a match to his brother, so they can continue the project if he signed up to do so. And that he would be paid, and that he'd be compensated for this, or whatever he joined the project. And it kind of like drowns him out, and kind of has like the voice fade away, and then him start talking to himself. You can see that he's like thinking about for him, he probably was looking for purpose, because he did mention, like, once you're in the military, you're in the military. And he was like, he did say something of the sorts, like, even when you're out, you're still not out. Like, he still had the heart of a Marine, so he was like, okay. And then it also has a nice little sentiment to it as well, because it's like his brother passed away and was working on this, because his brother was a scientist. And he was like, well, to me, I like to look for the little nice little gestures and stuff too, the positive stuff. So I think for him, it was like, my brother's dead, and it seemed like that was the only person he really had. And so it was like, well, maybe he can at least go finish his brother's work, or see what, like, that world his brother was in was like, maybe something like that. I don't know. That's just me using my imagination. But anywho, so he's offered this position to finish what his brother started, pretty much. And so he was like, okay, you know what? Yeah, let's see. Okay. And so he gets into, like, this little, what I would assume would be like a flight, right? Like an airplane, but it's more than that, of course. He's going to another planet. And he mentions the planet, and the name of the planet is Planet Pandora, which I thought that was an interesting name for the planet, but okay. If you don't know what I mean by that, look up Pandora, or like Pandora's box, or whatever the case may be. But it's still a nice name, but Planet Pandora. So he mentions that there's like the possibility of traveling from planet to planet is nothing. Like, he mentions it as if it's something that the government or that people did all the time. But the thing about it was that I take back saying people. It's something that the government did, because he said that it was like only he heard of the planet before, but it was like a dream to be able to actually go there. And I want to say it's when he was in the military is the only time he actually heard of it, because when he actually gets to the planet, it's only military there. Like, there are no civilians. I didn't see any civilians in the movie. It was just like pretty much a military operation. And it made me wonder the access that people had to traveling to other planets. Mind you, now, when he did take this trip to this planet, when he woke up, well, when they woke him and everybody else up, they had other soldiers there as well. When they all woke them up, they stated how long it took for them to get there, and I think it was like 9 months and like 5 days or something like that. Because, like, when they woke up, it was like, all right, and they just cutting stuff on. Like, you've been in hibernation for like whatever, 5 months, 9 months. When you get up, you're gonna feel exhausted. You're gonna feel like this and the third. Don't move too fast. You can tell, like, there was like less gravity and like stuff like that. So I was like, I find it very interesting. I find it very, very interesting, because it's like, I'm not gonna lie, like, at the very beginning, like, when he's narrating and just like introducing himself and his life and stuff, you can see that he was just so much different, and his awareness was different from people around him and everything that was going on around him. And it was just like, when you see all the people like walking around, it just made you wonder, like, when you go out, when your awareness is high and you're out in the world, out and about, and it's like, how many people are just on autopilot? Because people just look like they're on autopilot. I don't know. Okay, yeah. So he travels to this new planet, and it's a complete, like, still, it's like I said, it's still like a complete, like, military operation. And there's certain rules and chain of command and things like this. So he meets, like, the guy that's in charge of, like, their group of, like, the soldiers, the head guy. Like, I'm sorry, I don't remember and I was in RTC. I don't remember like the chain of command, like colonel or sergeant or whatever. But it's like they didn't necessarily. I don't remember the guy's name, because he was kind of like a bad guy, or like a villain or whatever. And honestly, I feel like he was just this guy that been in the military for a long time, and he didn't care. He just cared about the operation or the mission at hand. And he wanted to get stuff done by any means necessary. And it's like the natives there, the people there that were the natives, it was their planet. Like, they didn't really, they looked at them more like animals, to be honest. And it's like, listen, either they get along, go along, or we kill them. Like, it was just like that. We want the resources. So, but anyway, so he meets the guy, and they're giving them like he's giving the guys that just came in, he's giving them a brief, right? And he's briefing them, and he's just telling them, like, listen, they got poison arrows, whatever. If they come in contact with you, that's it for you. It's the most poisonous. Like, he's giving them this brief as if just prepare to fight. Like, period. Just prepare to fight. Be careful. Like, these are not, like, they're hostiles. And not like they're people with feelings who make decisions. Like, that think for themselves. Like, it wasn't like that. Like, these guys came in, like, with little to no, more so on the no side of information. And they just told them, I won't say the worst. He was just like preparing them, like, listen, they're not, you know, pretty much like he was preparing these guys. It's gonna be a fight. He was like, I'm here to keep you safe, but I'm not gonna be able to accomplish that with all of you. Some of you not gonna make it. When you brief someone like that, well, like, how are they supposed to treat whomever they think they're going up against, especially if you don't antagonize the natives already, and they're already on high alert. So it's like you telling one side one thing, you've already pissed off the other side because you're being unfair and because they know what you're trying to do, but you're not telling your guys what happened before they got there. So it's like you're creating war. Like, it's like they automatically, it's like they were already creating that. It's like there was no peace involved. It just didn't seem like they started off that way to me. Just from that little tidbit, and even when I watched the movie for the first time, I was like, wow, like, okay, like, it had me almost thinking the same thing too. I'm like, oh, I'm thinking it's gonna be like Alien versus Predator type of thing. Like, oh, okay, they hostile. Like, ooh, they got poison and stuff. Okay, so anywho, so moving right along, Miss Squirrel, yeah, and so now it's mostly a military operation. They have their recruits that they bring in. What else did I do? I'm sorry, I wrote it down. So, okay, so after that, Jake leaves and he meets like the head scientist. Like, well, he meets two cool guys that like on the project, and one in particular who also has like an avatar body. One other guy, I don't think he had one, and he was just more of like a background guy. He stayed more like in the lab. He was pretty cool. I don't remember their names. But so they're kind of like giving him a walkthrough and going to introduce him to like the head scientist lady. Her name was Grace Augustine, I think they said. And they was like, oh, she was a great. She wrote like the book on avatars. And the thing is, like, the natives, their names were something different. They were what were they? Dang, oh man, I should have wrote that down. They were the Nadi or something people, because they weren't. We've been calling them avatars this whole entire time. They're not even avatars. The avatars were the humans who were pretending to be them. That's who the actual avatars were, because they were in avatars. They were in these fake bodies. And so they introduced him to Grace, who's upset. And she's like, he has no training, because she mentioned that his brother trained for 3 years, actually. His brother trained for 3 years to be able to, do what they had to go do. And so Grace was livid. She was like, no, they shouldn't have did that. And so she was like, no, I'm gonna go talk to Parker, whoever. And Parker was like the head, like, honcho. He was like the one in charge of all of what was going on. And he called them like blue monkeys. He pretty much considered them to be animals, less than. He really considered them less than. And all he wanted, he made that clear to Grace. Listen, this is the thing. Okay, so because I don't want to skip too far ahead here. So Grace goes to talk to him, and he's like, "Listen, I think we got lucky." She's like, "But this guy don't know nothing. He ain't got no experience. He don't know what's going on." And he was like, "So what? He matches." we pay all this money for the avatar his brother was supposed to be in. I think we got lucky by having someone who can get in that body. And it was all about money for him. And he made that clear, though, guys. He didn't lie to nobody. He didn't persuade anyone to do anything. Like, she knew, and so did he. Hey, listen, this is what we here for. We got lucky. He said, give him a try. I don't care. So, moving forward. So, they started to explain, well, the main guy, that also had, like, that was one of the lab guys, but he had a avatar body. He was explaining to Jake, and it's like they kind of like just keep it moving. It's like they don't really go in depth. They just explain it and keep moving. certain parts where you just have to pause and move, but you don't think to pause and move and actually think about it. So this is where like you have to dig a little deeper. And it's like things and research and videos and people have been coming up and saying certain things, and it's things that I've learned like right after Avatar came out, and it's things that I've learned recently, and it just makes sense once you really think about it. Because like when you're looking at something, when you're watching something, and it's just rolling, you'll miss it. But if you really sit and think about it, that's when it's called going down the rabbit hole. You start doing research and you really go and you dig deeper. It's like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Because this is what he says. Now they have like these little tanning bed looking things, right? Where they lay down in them and it transfers their consciousness into these bodies. Now mind you, so the little scientist guy is showing Jake his avatar, right? That well, it belonged to his brother, but it's his now. So, and that's what he told him. He was like, "Wow, it looks just like him." And by him, he was talking about Jake was talking about his twin brother, and the guy was like, "Well, it looks like you," because they were identical. So he's like, "Now it's yours," you know. So pretty much saying like, "Don't think about it, like he's yours now." And so he explained to him that nobody else, the reason why they recruited him in the first place, because no one else could fit like the structure of the avatar, because the avatars, now get this now, they say this clear as day. They say the avatars are created by using the DNA of that particular human that's going to be operating the body and the DNA from the natives. And I'm like, what? Why does that sound like it ain't too far fetched? Like, why does that not sound like something that could be going on or could potentially happen in our world today? That's interesting. I find it very, very interesting. So he says, and Jake reiterates because he's doing like these video diaries, and he's like, yeah, and so that's why I have to go. That's why I'm able to go. That's why I'm able to match my brother's avatar because of the DNA, etc., etc. And he was like, I'm the only one that can match because because they were saying like it has to be a match because it identifies with the nervous system, right? In Avatar, like what the hell? Okay, wow, wow, and they have these big, huge avatars. Mind you, they're like freaking 10 feet, like they're 10, 17, 20 feet tall, almost like giants, right? Compared to him, they're like giants. Giants. I'm gonna say it one more time. Giants. Because they said that giants could have, or they did at one point, roam our planet. Or they were here at one point. Maybe we were the giants at one point and we shrunk. Who knows? But when you sit and watch the movie, you tend to forget how big they are until they're next to a human. They're huge. Their trees are huge. Their animals are huge. They're bigger. Trees are bigger. Nature's bigger. Everything's bigger. Anywho, moving forward. So they explain all this to Jake, and then the next day comes, and they finally decide, okay, so we're gonna go ahead and transfer your consciousness. But they don't tell him this. They're just like, lay down. They just tell him like you're gonna be in it. They don't explain step by step how he's going. I guess they figured they didn't have time. So they lay him down in a little teddy bear, little machine thing, and the other lab guy, he lays down next to him in one, and then he's like, "Wow, okay." And mind you, now he's disabled; his legs don't work. You know, he's paralyzed. So they didn't tell him he wasn't going to be paralyzed. They didn't explain nothing to this poor man. And she was like, Grace, the lead scientist, she was like, well, did you study or da da da? He was like, I think he said he barely made it through the manual or something like that. She was like, are you serious? Are you kidding me? Now that was on him. Because, bro, if I sign up for something and they give me some read material, I'm going to skim through it. I'm going to read something. Come on now. He ain't had a clue. That was his fault. They should explain to him, too. But it still was his fault because they gave him, information that he didn't invest. So anywho, they put him down. And they was like, just relax and let your mind go blank. And they close him up and they put him in the thing. He wakes up inside the avatar body. At first he's like, whoa, I'm in this whoa different body. He sees his fingers. He's like, oh, okay. Then he sees his legs, baby. And he realized them things were working. He took off. That's one of my favorite parts. And I'm like, what made y'all think? I guess they didn't think nothing of it because they didn't have the same issue. But it was like they should have been more concerned. They should have been like more caring when it came to that, because that would have been the first thing I would have told him. Before that, I would have been like, bro, you're gonna have the ability to use your legs again, so or the or likeness of. I guess they just figured he just would know that. But I'm like, you don't know how it feels not to be able to use your legs, so I feel like they should have considered that. But it's on them because he took off. And it was like, oh no. Because he really did he didn't understand, and they didn't make it that big of a deal in the movie either. But if he would have ran off and the real native people would have caught wind of him, or he would have ended up whatever, it would have been a big situation. But anyway, because mind you, the natives aren't aware that they're not one of them. They just know that they were different, and they thought that was a little weird. But you look like me, and there's no one else here that exists but us. So maybe you're just from the other side of this planet. You're different. So this is what it was. Okay. Now Grace, I have a problem with Grace because I didn't know what boat to put her in. Grace cared for the people. She really, really cared. She cared about her research too, though. That's the problem. See, because Parker, the guy that was overseeing everything and in charge of everything, who I said was the head honcho, he clearly reminded her every chance he got, this is about the money. He was like, listen, this money is what funds your research, boo boo. Like, and she just took it on the chin. And I'm like, but how much do you really care about these people? Because mind you now, he made it clear to her, like, I allowed you to do this because it would help us to pretty much soften them up and have them be okay with being invaded, to be invaded. So he was like, you're supposed to gain their trust, and you're supposed to do this and do that. He was like, all this other stuff. Like, Parker, I laugh at him, and it's hard for me to look at him like a bad guy because he didn't lie to nobody. How's he a bad guy? Like, he didn't lie to not one person. He reminded every chance he got. The man playing golf, he don't know how to work half the stuff in there. And they were fully aware that that's all he was about, was that money. And he did show her at one point. He was like, this is what it's all about, okay? And he showed her like a crystal, like stone type of thing. And it was called unintanium or something like that. And the bulk of it was underneath, like, what I would consider the natives, like, tree of life, to be honest, because it technically was like tree of life. Because anytime, and they would meditate to connect to the earth, like grounding. They would be able to heal, and they also, mind you now, and I'm skipping way ahead right here, but that tree and those people have a connection to their planet, because all of them were connected to the animals, to the planet, like to everything, right? By them having that connection, they were at the end of the movie now. And if you haven't seen Avatar, well, I've been running this. It's been a spoiler alert this whole entire time if you haven't noticed. Because I don't really go to like part by part. Because just in case you do want to watch it, I don't describe every single thing. But I will say at the end of it, they end up transferring Jake's consciousness into the Avatar permanently. Now, mind you, they didn't have no machines, baby. They didn't have none of the wires. They didn't have no metal, none of that. They had no steel. This was all pure. All of that. Same technology, but came right from the people. And I thought that was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. So that just tells me a lot. And I'm like, who are the natives really? Is it us? Is it us? Because it's too, like, you can relate a little too much to me, to the movie. And it's like, okay, so let's go back. Now, Jake is like, okay, no, let me go back to Grace. Because Grace, let me tell you about Grace. So Grace builds a school. She teaches them, and they have like kids too. Now they people. They have like the kids and stuff. This woman teaching them English and teaching them like Earth. Because I was about to say American, but I forgot something. So she's teaching them like Earth kind of things we had here on Earth. I was about to say there, like I'm not on Earth right now. But anyway. Anyway, so she's like teaching them new things that they've never heard of, introducing them to new things. But this is my thing though. Parker got mad. He was like, "We need to get to that tree because we need the resources that's underneath the tree, which is that stone that I named that I barely could pronounce, unobtainium, which is real close to unattainable, if you kind of think about it. Anyway, so he's like, I don't care. He said, we don't try to offer them medicine. We've tried offering them this, that, education, and the third. And none of that's working. We need to figure out how to get them away from that area so we can pretty much destroy it and mine and take what we want, right? And so the thing is with that is that she knew this and she still went on as if she wasn't like just like him. And you're part of the problem because anything and everything they knew about these people came from you and your people. I don't care where y'all at. I don't care how much you care for these people. You still helping this man. Like, Grace, what are you doing? Don't get me wrong, she was nice. And it's like, listen, just because you're not necessarily pulling the trigger, but you loaded the pistol though, so what it don't make you no better. You watching. You're still participating. You're still participating. So that makes you just as bad. Like, y'all on the same level. So it's like, at a certain point, I was like, I can't look at you any differently than I look at the man in charge. Because y'all are a team. Everybody working as a team. Like, besides the people that didn't know no better, that just didn't know what was going on, yeah, it happens like that sometimes. It does happen, but I'm like, she was fully aware. There was nothing about it. She knew what she was doing. I don't care how nice you are to these people when you're in their face. You're pretending to be one of them. You're pretending to be one of these people. It's weird, bro. Like, it's weird, bro. It's super duper weird. So, Jake, okay, so anywho, sorry. I just had to go in on Grace real quick because she really kind of, because when I just remember when I first seen it, I was like, oh, I was like, she's really a good person. And don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean that Parker's not a good person either. Just because he was money hungry, we don't know what that man was like either. We just saw what was depicted to us. Like, who knows who Parker was? Because if I look at her the same way, I had to look at him the same way too. Because think about it though, he ain't pick up nothing else. He ain't do nothing to nobody. He just ordered other people to do it. So in other words, we can't judge. At the end of the day, you can't judge. Everybody was in the same boat to me. Even Jake at one point. Even Jake at one point, because he was so blind, he didn't even think to learn anything until he ended up catching on. And the only reason Jake probably ended up catching on the way he did is because he actually had to spend time with these people. So we don't know what side he would have fell on either. And it's like, you can tell that Jake had a good heart regardless, though. He really wasn't going for but so much. But he was teeter-tottering to me to a certain degree. Because it's like, bro, you still in on it too. And it's like, sometimes sometimes that happens, and I feel like that's normal, and we can't be hard on nobody because everybody makes decisions. Everybody do what they do, and some people are heartless. Some people are heartless, but I found, I don't know. I just looked at different perspectives, and to be honest, it's like I didn't see any bad guy or any good guy. I just saw a bunch of people making decisions. Period. Like at the end of it all. So we ended up, mind you, it kind of reminded me of Pocahontas now that I think about it. Oh, Lord. No. Because then that brings it back a little closer to us now, don't it? We're talking about natives and we're talking about people that come from resources. That's a little interesting. And the biggest thing to me is that they painted these pictures being in the future. And I'm like, past, present, future. History repeating itself. Like, it's odd to me how they paint these pictures. Because I'm like, you showed up here on these people's planet acting like you needed to give them something. Like they needed something. They had everything they already needed. Period. Grace didn't have to teach them English. She didn't have to teach them nothing. They didn't need that. They didn't need that. That's why offering medicine and things like that, it wasn't going to work because they didn't need it. They were in tune with nature, and that's all they needed. And they protected nature with their lives. With their lives. And they understood that, and they were beautiful people. And I really feel like it was a message to everybody. If we're gonna be honest, but you gotta do your own research though. I'm not here to give you everything. I'm not here to give you all the answers. If you feel like there was any points that I missed, then you should share it. Please share it. You know, if not with me, with others around you. Like, hey, I listened to this podcast today that broke down Avatar. Just this person went into like certain details, and this is what I thought about it. You know, have that conversation. We don't have to talk about like football and all this other stuff that has no meaning, that does nothing to nurture our lives. Like, let's talk about things that you know, kind of get the juices flowing a little bit. You know, it helps you flow. Eventually, you end up flowing back to yourself. You know, so yeah, I just found it interesting. But Jake ends up being, let me go right back to this real quick. Jake ends up being an undercover spy. Mind you now, anytime he goes to sleep in this avatar body, he wakes up in his human body. I found that interesting because his consciousness automatically tethers back. Like, there's no lost connection there. And it's like wherever he is in that body, it doesn't matter. As soon as he falls asleep, as soon as he gets back into that particular state of mind, he travels almost like my dreams. But not exactly, of course, because I'm not necessarily traveling. Or am I traveling? Well, I'm in different bodies, I think, though, for the most part. Some bodies feel similar, and then sometimes I feel like I'm in a different body, but it depends. But yeah, who knows? I think it's kind of fascinating, and it just feels like all of these things. I feel like at this point, like damn near all of my podcast episodes are kind of, because they're all different for the most part. They all have different context and content to them, but they're all kind of circling back to one, which makes sense, of course, because we're all one and everything is one, because we all come from the same one, of course, spirit. And it just makes sense how we're all connected, how all of these things somehow find themselves, you know, circling back to us. And that's kind of sort of what I wanted to point out. And so, yeah, I'm not going to go any further. But if you've already seen it, then, you know, and you didn't think of it, or maybe you did think of it, maybe you even looked at it completely different. I'm very interested and want to hear what you think. And yeah, I think I don't think I'm gonna touch on anything else with the movie. It was interesting. Like, I may end up bringing it back, of course. I may end up watching Avatar 2 and doing an episode on that one too, so I don't know. But yeah, until my next RHT time, you know. Well, no, because then that's rabbit hole time. Because Tierra stands for time. Okay, so until my next RHT episode, thank you for joining me. I appreciate you for being here. I hope you enjoy your day or your night. And I love you because I have no reason not to. Thank you. Thank you for joining me.